wise guy, eh? One at a time.
Oh, my neck!
How's it feel now?
All right.
That's good. Come on. Remind me to kill you later.
I'll make a note of it. I ain't got a pencil.
Well, I changed my mind. I'm going to do it now.
Ooh, ooh!
Welcome to Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. I'm Jonathan Friedmann.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer and engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Cool Shul Jewish Cultural Community, and Atheists United Studios. Hey, Joey. The Three Stooges are sort of like folk music. They were never new and they never get old. It seems like they've always been here. Unlike most vaudevillians turned film actors, their comedy still works. It's classic in the classical sense. It never goes out of style. The Stooges were active from the 1920s to around 1970, starting on stage and continuing with films starring the iconic trio of Larry Fine, Moe Howard, and Curly Howard, and as the years went on, cycling in fan favorite Shemp Howard, who was with them in the vaudeville days, and less than fan favorites Joe Besser and Curly Joe DeRita. Throughout this time and beyond, Stooge fandom has manifested in memorabilia of all conceivable types, shapes, and sizes. It's enough to fill a museum, as today's guest can attest.
We're excited to chat with Gary Lassin, founder and curator of the Stoogeum in Ambler, Pennsylvania, the only Three Stooges museum in the United States. Gary has been president of the Three Stooges Fan Club since 1986 and is the author of a new book, A Tour de Farce, The Complete History of the Three Stooges on the Road. Gary, welcome to Amusing Jews.
Hello, hello, hello. It's my last impersonation. I promise. I leave them to the professionals, so sorry about that. Hey, before we get too far into this, I just want to make it clear, the Three Stooges were the amusing Jews here, not Gary Lassin. So, Three Stooges, Jewish, very amusing. Gary Lassin, Jewish, not so amusing.
Your wife's grandfather, Moe Feinberg, was the younger brother of Larry Fine. Could you tell us how your relationship with your grandfather-in-law evolved into the Stoogeum?
I'll try to abbreviate it as best I can. When I was dating my wife back in the 1980s, she let on that she was related to somebody famous, but she wouldn't tell me who, almost like she was embarrassed of who it was. Her name was Robin Solomon. I couldn't think of any famous Solomons, and I kept guessing and to no avail. She finally let on, like you said, that her grandfather was Larry Fine's brother. But she was not proud of it. She was afraid of Larry Fine growing up as a kid because the students hit each other, poked each other, and as a little girl, she was afraid of them. So when Uncle Larry used to come and visit, they would call him Uncle Max. And for some reason, she wasn't afraid of Uncle Max. So that's how they handled that over the years. But when I met her and started dating her, both of my grandfathers were dead, and her grandfather, Moe Feinberg, had no grandsons. He had all daughters and granddaughters. So we made a very natural combination. I had been collecting baseball cards at the time, and baseball cards were very boring. I got to tell you, they were all the same size. They were all made by the same company at that time, and there were only two baseball cards, a guy going like this and a guy going like that, throwing ball. So he showed me some of his Three Stooges stuff, and he didn't have a lot. He wasn't a collector, but he had a record, he had a comic book, he had a T-shirt. I thought, wow, this is cool. Maybe I'll go out and look and try to find some Three Stooges stuff. And I started trying to find it, and it wasn't easy to find, but I could find it. And I started getting into it, and it was like a chip went loose in my brain. I had to just have more stuff. So I started going to shows. Back in those days, there was no eBay. There was no online collecting. I'd go to a comic book show and spend all day at the show looking through boxes of Batman, Superman. Oh, a Stooges one. Oh, I have this one. Batman, Superman, X-Men. Oh, this one, Stooges. Oh, the cover's torn. I'd spend the whole day there and come home with $5 comic book. But that's the way collecting was. And I just was, like I said, a chip went loose in my brain, and I had to have as much stuff as I could. Moe Feinberg was not a collector, but he was sort of like the best thing I had to remind me of Larry Fine. He had that, Larry had that very gravelly voice, that distinctive Philadelphia accent with the gravelly voice. And Moe Feinberg, his brother, he sounded just like him. And Moe was left-handed just like Larry. And he told jokes with a Jewish dialect just like Larry. And he did the soft shoe routine. So it was just like almost having Larry Fine there and hearing all his stories about the old vaudeville days, life on the road. I was just fascinated by it, and we became very, very close. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1986. So, he's gone quite some time now, but we had a great relationship, and it's something I'll never forget, for sure.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe.
So did Mo Feinberg also perform on vaudeville?
Larry's brother, Mo, he had a performing bone also, but he was more of a dancer. He called himself a hoofer. Back in those days, they were hoofers. Larry was more into making people laugh, and Mo, his brother, was into dance, but Mo Feinberg did not like to travel. He tried vaudeville a little bit, apparently, and he did not like life on the road. Larry Fine, on the other hand, loved life on the road, and most of his life spent living in hotels. He didn't buy a house until he was like 50 years old. Got used to living on the road. Loved room service and maid service, and living on the road and traveling from city to city. His brother, Mo Morris Feinberg, not so much.
So you became a fan of the Three Stooges as a boy, watching their shorts on TV after school in the 1960s and 70s, and that was during a revival period for the Stooges. I had a very similar experience in the 90s, coming home from school and watching the Stooges. There was another revival period in that decade. The movie Stooge Mania, that very odd film from 1986, starring one of our past guests, Melanie Chartoff, attempted to cash in on the Stooge craze of that period. And of course, the Farrelly brothers had their movie from 2012, Love It or Hate It, but that was another kind of reiteration of the Stooges in our cultural vernacular. Why is it that they kind of don't go away?
I don't know. I could say as a hardcore fan, that these seems like waves to people who are not fans, peaks and valleys. But in my world, the guys we're hardcore fans, and we've been so ever since we can remember. That's the common theme of most of the guys my age who are fans. We've been fans ever since we can remember. When we came home from school, like you said, back in those days, there were only 3 channels. There were only 3 TV channels when I came home from school. So the Stooges were on one of those 3. So 1/3 of the airwaves were populated by Stooges. Today, of course, you've got 300 channels, and the Stooges not on any of them. So it was a very different landscape, back then. But their popularity has, and for the hardcore guys, it's never wavered. These other tribute projects like Stooge Mania and Farrelly Brothers projects have come, every 5-10 years a new project comes up, and some new people join the fray, and some new people get reinvigorates their interest and things like that. But for the hardcore guys, it's been steady since we were little kids.
Do you have a sense of why their humor is so perennial?
There's just everybody likes them for a different reason. That's a question I always get. Why do people think they're funny? And everyone has a different reason. For me, it makes me feel smart. I feel smart when I watch them because I never saw anybody so dumb. As dumb as I am sometimes, I always feel smart watching them. A lot of people think it's because they get away with stuff that they couldn't get away with. Everybody wants to kick their boss in the rear end or throw a pie in a society matron's face. And we can't do it in real life. We can't. We want to, but we can't. And so the Stooges got away with stuff like that, and and help us feel like we're living through them. Every time I watch them, there's so much going on. The interplay with the supporting players and the crazy sound effects and the cheesy special effects that they had back then. That's all they had to work with. But how good were they? And how quaint and cheesy? Like I said, they're cheesy, but in a quaint way today. So the films hold up really well. One of the things I remark about all the time is when I'm in the theater in the Stoogeum, there can be 3 generations of fans. There can be a grandfather, a father, and son, all watching all laughing at the same thing. And I'm really hard pressed to think of any films or TV shows of today's day and age where 3 generations can sit side by side and laugh their heads off at the same thing. It's just there's nothing out there like it.
Yeah, and I guess those class struggles and like you said, animosity towards the boss and that kind of thing, that's not going away either.
No, never. So they played off of that. And there's just a lot of stuff. The fact that they made these films on such low budgets, the cheese, I can't emphasize the cheesiness enough because, today's films, they go out of their way to make everything so technically perfect and realistic and you can see the dummies in these films, when a Stooge gets thrown over a fence and lands on the other side, you can clearly see it's a straw dummy, not the real Stooge. It's kind of, it's just really great stuff. I can't begin to tell you how much I enjoy watching them, even after all these years. I never lose the enthusiasm for watching these films.
When people think of the Three Stooges, they usually think of cartoon violence and buffoonery, which is certainly understandable, but their comedy, as you mentioned, was also smart and sprinkled with social satire. Maybe just restating the point, how much of their success owes to their ability to work on different levels.
Well, there was certainly a lot going on. I mean, the human cartoon thing was certainly a major part of it. There were rules of the Stooges universe that were not the same rules as the other regular universe. So if a bomb blew up at their feet, their clothes were all torn and tattered, but their bodies were fine. If they got knocked unconscious, just throw a bucket of water on them and they wake up, So there were things like that smack of a cartoon. You'd never see humans doing it in real life, but they were able to do it. I think that was a major portion of it. The wordplay, the clever stuff like that was also a major portion of it. They made a lot of contemporary references. Some of that's lost on today's audiences, unfortunately. So they would be even funnier back in the day when they were making references to the New Deal organizations and things like that no one knows what they are anymore. Or the OPA and this, no one knows what they mean. But there's still 90% of what went on there. It still holds up for sure.
I read that you counted 38 Three Stooges shorts that include Yiddish or Hebrew terms. One that stands out to me is their 1940 film, You Nasty Spy, which was among the first satires depicting Nazi fascism and features Moe as the first American actor to imitate Hitler. So on the one hand, their humor is universal. People of all ages and backgrounds and generations, as you've said, can understand it. On the other hand, it's saturated with, I think, a Jewish sensibility. So what might that tell us about the DNA of American humor? Is there something Jewish about general humor?
I don't know if eye poking is part of Jewish sensibility or not. Maybe a lot of the Jewish Yiddish stuff they threw in there was just casual references, the name of a character or the name of the street or something like that. To me, the bigger mystery is, why did they do that? Why did they give a character a street Yiddish name when 95% of the audience was not going to understand understand the joke? We still don't really know the answer to that. The Jewish people would understand that somebody lived on Meshuggah Avenue. Yeah, that's funny. But somebody who would not get the joke. So we really don't know why they threw these things in there. We do know that the head of the shorts department was Jules White, who was born Jules Weiss. He was a Hungarian Jew, so he certainly would have been familiar with Yiddish. And Harry Cohn, who was the head of the studio, was Jewish. So they must have been totally on board with the use of it. They thought it was funny, and that's probably why the stuff got in there, because they thought it was okay.
Yeah, inside jokes, I guess, to keep themselves entertained.
Yeah, I guess if you weren't Jewish, you knew it was a joke. You didn't know what it meant. They had the name character, so a doctor could be Dr. Hugo Jones, or he could be Dr. Hugo Ganzemacher, which was a big shot. Dr. Hugo Jones isn't very funny, and if they heard Ganzemacher, that's funny. Maybe it's a joke. They don't know. So I guess that's what it was. It was an in joke for the Jewish people, and for the other people, they knew there was a joke there. But the fact that it went over their heads was okay. It was okay with Jules White and Harry Cohn. So
I mean, maybe the Stooges helped make Jewish popular culture, American popular culture, because I do hear a lot of people making Yiddish references that I never thought people would know about. So maybe the Stooges helped Jewish people pass in America to a certain extent.
Finally, whoops, got carried away. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
So aside from Joe DeRita, all of the Stooges were born to Jewish immigrant parents. DeRita said that he didn't think the Stooges were very funny. He enjoyed his time with them, but didn't really appreciate the humor. Could it be that DeRita, a non-Jew, was too culturally distant from the Stooges' idiosyncratic Jewishness?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think most fans believe that Joe DeRita should be thanking his lucky stars for becoming a member of the Three Stooges, because no one would remember him now were it not for that. But the fact is, Joe DeRita had a 50-year career in show business before he joined the Stooges, and he was very proud. Joe Bassett was the same thing. They had very lengthy careers in show business that they wanted to be known for. They didn't really want to be known just as a Stooge because of the wide variety of things they had done before for so long. So I think they were not ashamed of their work with the Stooges, but they didn't want to be known just for that. And so maybe, that had something to do with why he said that, I'm thinking.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Three Stooges Fan Club?
So my wife's grandfather, Moe Feinberg, had been running this club up until his death in 1986. And at that point, it looked like the club was going to be over. But I was looking through all the mail that he got, and just about every letter said, "Boy, I love your newsletter. It's the only thing that comes in my mailbox that I like to get. It's always full of bills and catalogs. And I get your newsletter, and I'm so happy and excited." And I thought to myself, it'd be a shame to let this club die. Maybe I'll try to run it. I didn't know anything about running a fan club, and I had no idea what I was going to write about. The Stooges were dead. They weren't making any more films. They weren't on tour. What was I possibly going to write about? So I decided I would give it a go, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And I solicited help from the club members. I said, "Look, I'm taking this over. I need help from you guys. Send me your photos. Send me some stories." Well, they rallied around me like the backup quarterback came in. Starting quarterback's down, and now they know the backup is in, and they really have to elevate their game to help out the backup. And that's what they did. They started sending me writing stories and photographs. And before I knew it, I had a couple of years of backlog of material. I've been keeping it going since 1986. So, 30 some years into it. And I still come up with 16 pages 4 times a year somehow. So it's great. We have members there's about 2,000 members all around the country, and about 50 or so members overseas, spread out through Europe and Japan, Australia.
That's amazing. Is there much of a foreign audience for this, which seems to be, the Stooges are kind of quintessentially American in a lot of ways?
Well, they were aired overseas, with subtitles and voiceovers in a number of countries, but not so much anymore. So there's pretty limited interest. But we do have fans in Argentina and Japan, like I say, in Germany and in England. A lot of Canadian fans for sure, because they did actually visit Canada too in some of their tours. But mostly it's the United States thing.
That's a long time to be running a fan club.
It is, and it's one of the oldest continuously run clubs in the country. I mean, people think of a fan club as a screaming teenagers, but it's a bunch of old guys with gray hair and bald, like chrome domes, it's great ponytails and chrome domes in that club.
So this is your book, A Tour de Farce, The Complete History of the Three Stooges on the Road. It's a big book. It weighs in at nearly 800 pages, and it's probably the heaviest book I own, and I own a lot of books. So you spent decades really putting together this record of the Stooges' live appearances at theaters, hospitals, military bases, social clubs, schools, you name it, something like 1,500 examples. And the book has hundreds of really remarkable, candid photographs as well. It's truly a monumental work. And I'm just wondering, what was the process of putting together this book?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. It wasn't supposed to be a book. It was all started when I was standing in line behind somebody who was wearing a Rolling Stones t-shirt for their Steel Wheels tour. This was back in the 1990s. And I think the Steel Wheels tour was 1989. And the guy had a shirt and it said Chattanooga, May 13th, Memphis, May 14th. And I thought, wow, that's great. They have a record of every place they stopped on that tour. That's great. Wish we had something like that for the Stooges, because no one ever kept any record of where the Stooges had played. And they played everywhere for 50 years. It's really a shame. I don't begrudge the Stones. They're great. I love them. But the Stooges should have something like that. So just in earnest, I started keeping track of dates that I had. I went through my memorabilia. I went through playbills, and I wrote down the dates that they were, in Sacramento. I had some photographs that said, oh, here they were in St. Louis, March 14th to March 18th. So in earnest, I just kept getting information from the memorabilia I had from other fans, and it became like a crossword puzzle. I was filling in, 3 across and 4 down, and now all of a sudden 5 across became apparent. I could see if they were in Cleveland the first week of March, Philadelphia the third week. Where were they the second week? I'd look at a map. Oh, Pittsburgh's right in between those two cities. Maybe I'll check the Pittsburgh newspaper. Sure enough, that's where they were that week. I would look at photographs where I knew what they were wearing on May 2nd. Oh, here's another photograph where we're wearing the same exact thing. This must have been taken on May 2nd. And I could tell now that I knew that photograph was taken in Austin, Texas, or wherever. So I went through every conceivable source I could think of to come up with information. I went back in the day, there was no online newspaper. So I went to libraries. I went to Library of Congress. Made that 3-hour trip down I-95 a couple times a year. I got a reader card at the Library of Congress, and I went through microfilm. I don't know if you ever did research on microfilm. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's a lot of work. But I went through all the microfilm they had to figure out where the students were. I solicited help from the fans, the Three Stooges Fan Club. I wrote to local historical societies. I begged, I borrowed, I didn't steal, but I did whatever I had to do to get information. And after about 20 years, I thought, you know what, I could do a book. I've got all kinds of great photos in my museum. And now I know where they were almost every week for 50 years. And I decided it was time. And so around 2016 or 17, I put pen to paper. And about 5 years later, voila, it's a finished product. So and thank you so much for buying the copy. It's great. I'm really happy that you like it.
Yeah, where did you find the terrific photographs you included?
There are 40 plus years of collecting. 40 plus years of collecting. And the great thing about the photographs in this book, unlike, there's 40 or 50 other books on the market about the Stooges, most of them are just inundated with Columbia's publicity shots from the shorts. And they're the same tired old stills, scenes from the films over and over and over. The great thing about my book is they're photographed out on the road, pressing the flesh with the fans, posing with kids and old people and boxers and wrestlers and all kinds of just regular folks out on their personal appearance. And so you see a lot of candid shots instead of the standard, publicity stills from Columbia that have just been, used ad nauseum in the other books. So that's the other thing people seem to like about the candid shots.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you get those from collectors and family members and whoever else might have had them?
All over. Well, the family members have the best shots because the family members have stuff from their albums that are the super duper candids, from birthday parties and things like that. But other collectors have them on eBay, shows, wherever, estate sales and auctions.
Yeah, I think that alone is worth risking injury by picking up this book and flipping through it.
I was thinking about scaling it down, using less heavy paper, soft cover, but I'm only going to do one book in my lifetime. I want it to be good. So I was going to do it all. This was going to do it right the first time. So
yeah, it's going to last forever. That's for sure.
Certainly. Oh.
The Stoogeum has nearly 100,000 items, filling 3 floors and 10,000 square feet. Do you personally have any favorite items, and how can fans book a visit?
I always tell people my favorite item is the Semps discharge from the Army. It's the oldest document I have. It dates back to 1918, and on the back it tells why he was discharged from the Army, and the reason was a medical term called nocturnal enuresis, which translates into bedwetting. It's an incidence of bedwetting and was discharged from the Army. The other reason I think it's great is he signed it Samuel Horwitz, which was his real name. And there are like no other collectors in the world, basically, that have a document signed Samuel Horwitz, because ever since he turned professional, he was Shemp Howard, and signed, everything was signed that way. So that's the other reason I like it. But the building is full of all kinds of rare and unusual stuff, that are like people that want to make a visit. It's easy. The Stoogeum has a website, which is www.stoogeum.com. I was told you allow one shameless plug per podcast. So there's the shameless plug, www.stoogeum, STOOGEUM.com. You can set up an appointment there. You can buy my book from that website too. Do everything except get your eyes poked.
Well, thank you so much, Gary, for joining us.
I've had a blast doing it. Thank you so much. And I hope the viewers have learned something about the Stooges. If not, there's an eye poke for them.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.